Minute. Good afternoon, everyone. 26 students suffered minor injuries today in a bus accident. Authorities say that one bus driver apparently had the most serious injury, a back injury. Both school buses were on their way reportedly to Pulaski High School when they collided south of Pulaski just about 7 o'clock this morning. Brown County deputies say one bus couldn't stop on the icy road and slid through a stop sign into the intersection of Crest Drive and St. Augustine Road. Deputies say the roads had not been sanded.
I had a hard time stopping the squads and the rescue units.
When we tried stopping, we couldn't stop, and she went on to oncoming traffic, and from the other way a bus was coming, another school bus full of kids. All I saw was the two buses meeting, and then we were in the ditch.
Now, the accident victims were taken to two Green Bay hospitals. As I said, one child's parent is a school bus driver. She said she heard about the crash on her two-way while driving her own route this morning.
I tried calling the bus line, Jane's bus line, figuring that they would have some information. I couldn't get through, the lines were tied, and about maybe 15 minutes later I received a phone call from my daughter saying she was in the hospital.
School officials were on the phone all morning calling worried parents, and the high school held an assembly of all of its students about 90 minutes ago. American Eagle planes are grounded again.
One parent was actually driving another school bus when she heard about this.
This is a scene played out several times at St. Mary's Hospital this morning. Ambulances arriving one after the other with injured students from the Pulaski crash, and parents weren't far behind.
We're having a lot of parents calling in to see how their children are, if they're here.
Julaine Bersamak was driving a school bus in Howard this morning when she heard about the crash on her two-way radio.
I know my daughter rides a Pulaski bus, so subconsciously I thought, well, is it possible that she could have been on one of them? And I tried calling the bus line, Jane's bus line, figuring that they would have some information. I couldn't get through, the lines were tied.
About 15 minutes later, her daughter called from the hospital saying she was in the crash.
When I got the phone call, I guess I was more upset because she was crying, and I really didn't know what kind of condition she was going to be in until I got down here.
The doctor examined me, and he said I'm fine. I got a little headache, but he said I was fine.
13 students and one of the bus drivers were treated here at St. Mary's Hospital. Most of their injuries are minor, but still, some of the parents say they have plenty of reasons for concern.
She hit her head, and I'm just worried about, having complications later on, so I'm just hoping that, everything is all right.
A hope shared by many parents in Pulaski tonight. Mark Warner, Action 2 News, Green Bay.
One final point now tonight about this school bus accident this morning. At least one police officer on the scene says the number of students hurt in this collision may have been reduced if seatbelts were required on school buses here in Wisconsin. This accident could spark a renewed push for a statewide law requiring school buses to have a seatbelt for every child on board.
The man accused.
Almost a dozen ambulances respond to an accident scene near Pulaski. Two school buses collide. Several students are injured. Good afternoon, I'm Tammy Elliott. More than 20 students were injured this morning when the two school buses collided. It happened less than a mile away from their final destination, Pulaski High School. Eyewitness News reporter Sven Craddock is live at one hospital where the injured students were taken. Sven, how serious are the injuries?
Well, Tammy, officials are calling it minor to moderate injuries, and in this case that means mostly neck and back injuries. At least 10 ambulances were called to the scene this morning. One by one, rescue workers carried the injured out, mostly on backboards. The two buses apparently collided between 7:30 and 8 this morning. It happened about a mile from the high school off of the Crest Road. From that, we can assume that the buses were fully loaded because they were almost to the school.
Another bus was coming the other way, but they didn't have a stop sign, so I guess they tried to stop, but they just slid, and they slid into us. And they went into one ditch, and I guess it seemed like we did a U-turn because all of a sudden we're just sliding, and practically everybody on one side ended up on the other side of the bus.
Officials say icy roads probably caused the crash. One town chairman says the road was plowed, but no salt or cinders put down. Now, Tammy, the non-injured students did make it onto the high school this morning. As for the students that were taken here to this hospital and other area hospitals, as I mentioned, they did receive back and neck injuries. We just don't know exactly how serious those injuries are.
Sven, you said the roads were pretty icy in that area. Does it look like the bus driver could be at fault?
Well, at this point, officials are telling us that the buses don't appear to have been going very fast at the time of the accident. They say high speed wasn't a factor. But at least one bus driver was injured in the accident, so officials haven't had the opportunity to interview him or her and find out exactly what happened.
All right, thanks a lot, Sven. Sven Kreta coming to us live from St. Vincent Hospital in Green Bay. Now, like he mentioned, some students were taken to the high school and double-checked by paramedics. For more on that, let's join Terry Kovarik, who's live in our newsroom. Terry.
Tammy, as Sven just mentioned, the buses were fairly full. 70 students, they estimate, were riding in the buses when the accident occurred. Some were taken to the hospital from the scene, and others were transported after being checked out at a high school gym. Now, in all, about 55 students were brought to the school to call their parents and get a closer examination from emergency medical service personnel. It was following those examinations that some students were transported on stretchers, while others walked to the ambulances under their own power. Now, as parents were notified, they were given the option of bringing their sons or daughters home for the day. High school officials later brought other students up to date at an assembly in the school gymnasium. And Tammy, they also used the opportunity to thank emergency crews for their quick and very effective efforts.
Very important. All right, thanks, Terry. Eyewitness News reporter Terry Kovarik live from our newsroom. In other news, despite their new planes,
Loaded with students on their way to school collide on an icy Pulaski road.
A much-rehearsed rescue plan flies into action.
There was Peter Alloy, S. Robin, Green Bay Fire. I mean, everybody, Howard, County Rescue, and that's why everybody kind of worked together. And they know this is a fairly good size, emergency, and that's what helped out.
Right. Good evening. I'm Terry Barr in tonight from Marty Spatel. The buses were packed with students on their way to class.
Boy, but the icy roads gave them a ride to school that they won't forget for a long time. As we begin our News 11 team coverage, Pamela Wright this evening spells out just what happened.
The normally quiet intersection of St. Augustine and Crest in Pulaski turned into a makeshift trauma center just after 7:30 this morning. Two school buses carrying 55 Pulaski high school students crashed, spinning to opposite sides of the road. 26 injured children were filed out on stretchers and loaded into ambulances. At one point, the injured outnumbered the emergency vehicles. Kids had to wait for help in the middle of the road. Rescuers implemented a disaster plan made especially for emergencies like today's.
That's what you train for, and that's why if you see there was Peter Alloy, S. Robin, Green Bay Fire. I mean, everybody, Howard, County Rescue, and that's why everybody kind of worked together.
Icy roads are believed to have caused today's accident, and they didn't make relief efforts easy either.
It was real slippery when I came out here, and had a hard time stopping the squads and then the rescue units.
The intersection of St. Augustine and Crest has since been salted, but the damage is already done. From Pulaski, Pamela Wright, WLUK-TV News 11.
Now we have something interesting to show you. Our News 11 artists came up with a diagram of just how this accident unfolded.
All right, Bus A, as we'll call it, was traveling north on St. Augustine Street toward Pulaski High School. Bus B was turning onto St. Augustine from Crest, but apparently hit a slippery patch and skidded through the stop sign. It was Bus B that then hit A as it went through the intersection, causing both vehicles to spin off the road.
With news of a serious bus wreck on their minds, emergency personnel at Green Bay hospitals were expecting the worst. St. Vincent's admitted 15 students and a bus driver who were brought to the emergency room by ambulances from the accident scene. Now, most were treated for minor head, neck, and back injuries.
There was an initial assessment out at the school area about who needed to be transported. And of course, once they come here, we did have to call in some extra staff from some other areas, but it really didn't cause that much of an upset here.
St. Mary's Hospital also took in a number of injured students. Those treated received minor or moderate injuries in the accident.
Well, if there is any good news, it is that the accident was not any more serious than it turned out to be.
That's for sure. And as our team coverage continues, News 11's Gary Thompson reports it is raising concerns about school bus safety.
Eric Benke is just one of the kids involved in this morning's accident.
I was just sitting back with my eyes closed, and it just happened. Everybody started making noise, and
he was unharmed in the incident. This is the intersection where the buses collided. While the injuries appear to be relatively minor, the incident has parents calling for seatbelts on school buses.
In fact, I said that many times. We have to have seatbelts everywhere except on the school buses where our children are. To me, doesn't make any sense.
But school officials in Pulaski say seatbelts on the school buses might do more harm than good.
Many believe that the way that school buses are constructed and the way seats are made and that you have built-in safety and that putting buses on there might actually exacerbate the kinds of injuries you have and everything.
Cook points to today's incident with 2 full school buses and no serious injuries as an example of how safe school buses already are. In Pulaski, Gary Thompson, WLUK-TV, News 11.
Now, as you can imagine, the scene at Pulaski High School was crazy this morning. And later on News 11 at 6, a look at how faculty kept everybody calm.
In other news on this Friday evening,
One bus landed nose down in a ditch, the other in the middle of a field, barely missing a cement memorial, leaving many asking, how did this happen?
It's not yet been determined whether driver error or speed had anything to do with today's accident. What is believed to be the major factor is an icy road. Where you now see salt on this road, this morning it was a sheet of ice.
News 11 has learned that Bus B was traveling west on Crest Road. It skidded on that ice through a stop sign, striking Bus A, which was heading north on St. Augustine. The town of Maple Grove is responsible for the snow and ice removal at this intersection. The town board decides when road treatment is needed. Today's accident may bring a change to that policy.
We try to do our best, but we'll probably try and contract with the village to sand out this far when they sand in the village.
Injured children were removed from the buses on stretchers. In all, 26 students and 1 bus driver were taken to area hospitals.
It was very well organized, I got to say. It was. From Brown County dispatch to everybody here was very well organized, and that's good. That made it easy for everybody's job, I think.
And the job they did is much appreciated tonight by those in the crash and their families.
I'm fine. Nothing wrong.
A little shook up.
Yeah, a little bit, but
Yeah.
not bad.
How about Mom? How are you? Relieved now that he's fine and I see him, he's okay.
Now they just look forward to a safe ride home. In Pulaski, Pamela Wright, WLUK-TV, News 11.
Emergency personnel were on standby at 2 Green Bay hospitals waiting for the arrival of students who might be seriously hurt.
And as our team report continues now, News 11's Julie Geyer shows us how one hospital handled those injuries.
5 ambulances brought injured students to St. Vincent Hospital. Inside, trauma teams were waiting. Emergency personnel treated 15 students and a bus driver for head, neck, and back injuries. Hospital spokesman Jim Reck is glad the accident was not worse.
We didn't implement a disaster plan per se, and there was an initial assessment out at the school area about who needed to be transported. And of course, once they come here, we did have to call in some extra staff from some other areas, but it really didn't cause that much of an upset here.
I have a neck injury, closed head injury, and I'm all right though.
Doctors took x-rays of 16-year-old Julie Peterson and asked the Pulaski High School student questions about the bus wreck. She doesn't remember much after impact.
Everybody's just shaken up about the whole accident, but everyone seems to be doing okay.
Later, Julie's father picks her up at the hospital and takes her home to rest.
We always have the immediate concern as a parent, but I'm glad she isn't hurt seriously.
In Green Bay, Julie Geyer, WLUK-TV, News 11.
Oh, it's a scary story. Now, at the school where the buses were actually heading, the staff was working extra hard to keep rumors under control.
So when the emergency subsided, the school's principal gathered the students together for an assembly. More on the team coverage now. News 11's Gary Thompson. He was on hand throughout the day. He joins us live from our newsroom. Gary?
Jay and Terry, by 10 o'clock this morning, the staff at the school knew pretty well that the injuries sustained in the incident were relatively minor. But getting that message across to a few hundred high schoolers where the story just keeps on building and building isn't all that easy, and that is why Principal Guy David called an assembly to tell the kids, quoting here, "It looks like we're going to be okay." Officials also told the students that the unfortunate and frightful incident caused no major injuries.
It could have been, a very, very serious. 2 large vehicles colliding. I also think it shows that a school bus is a pretty safe thing, really. I mean, they're big and all that, but they're built pretty sturdily.
Tells me that he was impressed with how well the Brown County Disaster Response Team handled this morning's accident. He says it's something that paramedics have practiced, sometimes even with some of the students there at the high school. Jay and Terry?
Thanks very much. Gary Thompson live in our newsroom.
Now tonight on News 11 at 10, we'll of course have the very latest on the bus crash. Plus Gary Thompson will explore just how Green Bay's disaster team prepares for accidents like this one, and that is all new for you tonight at 10.
In other news tonight,
from the consequences, but she was in the same condition. She came to the hospital, nothing was wrong with her, but she still has back problems.
Non-injured students did go on to the high school. Officials believe icy roads caused this crash. One town chairman says the roads were plowed, but no salt or cinders put down. The Department of Transportation is investigating. Now, this morning's accident raises the question of bus safety. How well trained are school bus drivers for driving under these adverse conditions? And what condition are the buses in? Eyewitness News reporter Olga Halaberta answers those questions for us.
Pulaski School District buses are checked out every 2,000 miles. They're pre-checked every day and state inspected once a year. In fact, both of these buses involved in the accident this morning were state inspected 5 weeks ago. They were found to be in excellent condition.
We always keep our tires up to snuff and follow all the state codes on that, and really basically it's just that the road is that slippery. You know, it's a freak that it happened that way, but you know, it's something that winter you can't predict.
But the training program here is predictable. The drivers go over everything from adverse road conditions to driving with problem children on board. The pre-employment training is on average 6 to 10 hours. All Pulaski bus drivers go through 4 refresher courses each year. They brush up on how to drive on icy road conditions. But as you can see, accidents will still happen. The drivers involved in the accident have 56 years of experience between them.
Well, they're both veteran drivers. I mean, they're good drivers. Here again, it can happen to a veteran driver, it can happen to a rookie driver.
And all drivers should be especially careful around school buses. Olga Halaberta, Channel 5 Eyewitness News, Pulaski.
Olga tells us the county intersection where the accident happened is heavily traveled by buses and student drivers.